Right now, though, we're going to move on with a look through the French papers of this morning. Belle Lupton here with me for that. Hi there, Belle.
Hi there, Kat.
Now, we're going to be starting off with somebody who's sort of actually outside of France, a former EU commissioner. He's got a new job and it's making people chat a little bit about whether it's quite the right move or not.
It certainly is. It's certainly got the front page of Libération, a left-wing paper here in France, with a rather unflattering drawing of Jose Manuel Barroso with the headline Sans foi ni loi, which translates as Barroso without principle or law. Now, it's all because Barroso has gone over to the dark side in Libération's point of view, certainly. He's taken a job at the American multinational Goldman Sachs. This, of course, Barroso being the former EU president of the EU Commission. Libération says this fuels suspicions that politics is governed by banks and further discredits Brussels institutions. In an editorial inside the paper, Libération goes on to say, once a traitor, always a traitor. It says the rot started with Barroso way back in last decade when he supported Bush's Iraq war, despite EU member states renouncing that war. The editorial also accuses Goldman Sachs of the most cynical manoeuvre, it says, which was an attempt to help Greece to get into the EU in the first place by slightly inflating the data that would help it to get in. And then when Greece collapsed during the financial crisis, who was there profiting the most? Well, Goldman Sachs again. Barroso, Libération says, again in another article on the same page as that previous one, says he has been caught with his hand in the jar. Now, the pun there is la main dans le sac, which would literally be his hand in the bag, and Sachs, of course, a pun on Goldman Sachs. Again, Libération was staying with that paper, saying he's not the first EU commissioner to make the move from public to private, which for an English-speaking audience may not be the biggest deal in the world. But here in France, that is quite a scandal. To go from public to private can be quite a big deal.
I was going to say, people do have careers. They move from one job to another. A lot of politicians go into all sorts of consultancy roles and things, don't they?
Absolutely. In the UK, it's something that we're very used to seeing. But in France, it is always a little bit poorly seen because the vocation of going into politics shouldn't easily be translated into the desire to make wealth afterwards. So here he is, though. He's not the first. Libération says that Neelie Kroes, his own vice president, Barroso's vice president, became public policy advisor at Uber. And before that, she had advised at Bank of America, Merrill Lynch. And the former EU Commissioner for Trade, Karel de Gucht, Belgian, became director of ArcelorMittal.
Like you say, it's showing up some interesting cultural differences there, because as you say, in the sort of maybe more Anglo world, it's not such a surprise. But in terms of the European Commission, perhaps they are seeing that this could be embarrassing for them. Their reaction has been quite interesting.
Yeah, well, the pro-business paper L'Opinion certainly talks of the current president, that's Jean-Claude Juncker, his sidestepping of the issue, his pantouflage. He's refused to condemn Barroso's move. Now, obviously, as we're saying, not a big deal perhaps if you're watching this from the English-speaking world, but for the French, that's quite a big deal that he hasn't yet condemned it.
All right, well, sticking with the idea of sort of political manoeuvring, there are some manoeuvrings going on within President Hollande's cabinet. General election coming up next year, of course, less than a year to go.
Yes, and Le Figaro is leading with that. The ambitious, it says, Finance Minister Emmanuel Macron defies President Hollande. That is on its front page. Le Figaro, right-leaning, so slightly more backing of Macron normally. Macron is holding his first big meeting with supporters of his own movement, which is called En Marche, which translates as working directly. And the paper goes on inside to say that Macron will be celebrating his own 14th of July, just a day early, though, because, of course, Bastille Day is tomorrow on the 14th, France's Independence Day, if you like. But
Thursday.
It's Thursday. Are we? What day are we now?
We're Tuesday today.
And
You're getting in the party spirit early,
I'm ahead of time, absolutely ahead of time, 13, 14. Macron, however, will be celebrating on the 13th with this, or today rather, with this meeting that tomorrow on the 13th with this meeting. Oh God, the days of the week, we are on today.
It's very confusing.
Very confusing. Anyway.
Well, why don't people just celebrate things on the day they're meant to be celebrating? Is he going to come up with some announcement?
Well, he's anticipated to be coming out with an announcement, but no. Le Figaro, as does another paper, Le Parisien, concludes that no, he's not going to be coming out and either resigning, which is what you might think he would do, to step out of this Hollande government that he can't stand potentially, nor, though, is he going to announce that he's going to be running for president, which would be the other very obvious thing that he might be doing in this meeting. Le Figaro says he'll do neither because he is playing the long game. What he wants to do at this stage is simply to stop Hollande from announcing his candidature for president next year. And the tabloid, the Le Parisien that I mentioned just now, concluding that same thing, it says that we should remember a survey that was conducted in June in which 63% of respondents said that they did not want Emmanuel Macron to run for president versus only 36% saying that they would quite like him to run. Left-leaning Libération, that we already mentioned, does a resume of the fors and against of Macron. So in favour of Macron, he's young, he speaks English, he's not a career politician, and he's pragmatic, says Libération. But against Macron, they say he's disloyal, as has been shown by his treatment of Hollande. He's a product of the economic establishment. He's too far right for the left, which is where he finds himself in his political affiliations at the moment. And his economic policy can sometimes be indecipherable.
Okay, well, we'll have to look out for what his next moves are going to be across the next few days. Is it just a Bastille Day party or not? Thanks very much for now. Belle Lupton, who'll be back a bit later on looking through the international papers for us as well.